Well, there was a lot of multiverse in this one, and then there was some madness. So, the multiverse of madness is finally upon us, and oh my goodness, there is a lot of hype going into this one. Uh, I reacted to literally most of the trailers, most of the teasers that came out. I was hyped to the max, and I know most people were. This movie, the way the theories and all the talk of what is going to really happen in this one, everything about it. There was a lot of things going into this one. There were a lot of things I was looking forward to. I also kept everything in check. I didn't went the route where I was like, everybody's gonna show up in this. But there were things that I do think I thought that they just needed to happen. And eventually they did not. And I think that also is kind of the problem around the film. Not the film itself, but around the film. Overall, though, was it like an 11 out of 10? What is like a 10 out of 10? No. It was really good. It was not great. It's not perfect. But at times, it was extremely great. And at times, it was perfect. And then there were times where there are situations that you're like, well, that's convenient. And the movie is so fast that it kind of like expects you to just forget what actually just happened on the screen and just move on because it's going at a pace that it's expected to. But in those moments, it's so on the nose that you're like, well, that is extremely super convenient. So there are many moments like this that hinder the film. And the ending kind of does, even though it's an awesome ending, but the way the story was going and the emotional aspect of the story, which is a really big one in this one, the ending needed to be longer because the way everything got built up and the action and whatever was happening on the screen. When the ending happens, in my opinion, everything kind of wraps up real quick and it's like, okay, well, that's it. Now, Doctor Strange itself, he is the central character. There's no doubt about that. It's kind of like, what happened with Captain America Civil War. Even though there's a lot of stuff in this, the lesson that we're learning and the lesson the character's learning, it's still intact. The way he starts with the movie, the way it ends, the character's journey, it's still his movie. The stealer of the show is, though, Scarlet Witch. And, oh my goodness, they did Scarlet Witch right. I mean, extremely right. Whatever you expected from her, going from WandaVision, and if you watch WandaVision, you'll know what I mean. And if you haven't, you need to watch it. Because a lot of the emotional stuff in this movie is all related to WandaVision, the show. And it's literally that story arc continuing into this movie. So it's extremely important that you actually watch the show. And I liked where that story went. She literally steals the show. There is some stuff in there. They go into a bit of the psyche and her abilities. And they really show what she's capable of. That stuff was extremely good. I also heard going into this that there was horror stuff. To me, that stuff was actually more like thriller. It was not really horror. I know some people are saying horror. I actually watched it with a friend. He liked those horror aspects, but I thought it was good, but I didn't take it as horror. Even the jump scares really didn't scare me. I thought it was more just Sam Raimi being Sam Raimi. I do feel like Evil Dead and, Drag Me to Hell, those kind of movies, they were more horror aspect because he directed those two. And there are a lot of influences from that onto this one. Even his Spider-Man trilogy, some of the camera work and the way you transitions between different screens, the different characters, there's a lot of stuff actually from those movies. There's literally a scene done in the same way that we actually saw in Spider-Man 2. So he controls this movie. As much as this is a Marvel movie, this is also a Doctor Strange movie, and it's also a Sam Raimi movie. It feels very blended in. It feels like a good blend, and it works. I actually loved the way it was shot, and loved the way, like, the horror aspects kind of mixed in with the Doctor Strange aspect, and mixed in what Marvel usually does. It's not the typical Marvel film, which I also loved. So overall, it was actually a really, really good time. America Chavez was good. I just feel like at this point, I do need to see a lot more of her to really see what this character really is. She was great, but it was not as groundbreaking. I think the more groundbreaking stuff actually came from Scarlet Witch's character, which was literally, again, the show stealer. The problems with the film are the script. Even though the script is awesome, I think the idea and everything in it, and what they're able to show and what they're able to build upon, that stuff is actually done really, really well. But within that, also, there are moments where you're like, that is way too convenient. And because the film is just going at a pace that it just does not let you breathe, which is also another problem, which I'll come to in a second, it expects you to just forget what happens on the screen. So you're always moving on. But you don't, because there are some important moments in the film that rely on those conveniences. And it's basically stuff like, oh, the character just happened, and this happened to this character, and now we're just all of a sudden moving on. But then you think about it, you're like, well, what the hell were you doing the last 10 seconds then? If that happened, and now you're this, now you're this, and then something else happens, and it's just as convenient. It's like, okay, well, why? Why were you there? If you were this, you should have been gone by now. That doesn't make sense. And it's those moments that kind of take away the perfection out of the story. And plus the ending, the build up and all of it, it just doesn't land as much as it should. Even though the ending is great, it needed to have a bit more time. And even within the script itself, there are a lot of emotional stuff happen. I mean, there's that second act, and something happens in that second act, and it's outrageously good. That is where the movie was 20 out of 10 for me. It was that good. And I literally looked over to my friend. I'm like, my God, Marvel is killing it. And it stays like that towards the end in the third act. But there are moments that do take the film back. And they kind of cut into not the enjoyment, but into the perfection of the film. I do think just spending a bit more on the script and adding a bit more in the movie, 2.5 hour movie, even 2 hour 20 minutes even, could have added a lot more emotional stake and a lot more to the madness of the movie. Because there is a lot of multiverse stuff, but at times you do not feel there was a lot of madness, even though there was, but it was in parts. At times you do feel like there should have been more. And I think that could have happened from the emotional scenes and the bit longer runtime of the movie. They could have added that emotional touches, because at the moment the movie just runs at a brisk pace and you just never able to grasp a lot of it. So I do think this is a movie I will need to really watch it a few more times to really understand. It's a lot of stuff thrown at you. So overall, it is a really good movie, even great and excellent at times, but it's never excellent all the time, or never great all the time. So that's kind of my take on this. What did you all think about this? If you're planning to watch it, I would suggest watch it in the IMAX or 4DX, or those moving seats and stuff, because this this movie needs to be watched until like that, or 3D, because there's a lot of stuff in there that could literally feels like that it's made for 3D. So yeah, that'll be my take on this one. Leave a comment below, let me know. And other than that, I want to say thank you for watching. Thanks for all the support, and I'll see you all soon. Until then, ta-da, a cow.